Well, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today, whether you're here on our Kirkland campus or online. I'm Wolfgang. I work here. And for those of you who are here, thank you for coming. I know it is a spectacularly gorgeous day out there, and you're probably searching everywhere for your sunglasses recently, so hopefully you found those. And for those of you joining us online, my goodness, I hope you're doing it from somewhere pretty. Like, get out of your living room and go outside on your phone and watch the service today. But we are thrilled to have you here. And I'm particularly excited because we're kicking off a new series today that we've been working on for a while. But I want you to know up front, it's going to be a little different from some of the other series that we've done recently. Many of you know that we have recently come off a series where we were talking about rest, about the idea of Sabbath. Just super practical things, learning about God being the one who actually invented the idea of a weekend and challenging each other. Very practical ways to jump off this hectic, frantic treadmill that so many people find themselves on and leaves them overwhelmed and frustrated and exhausted. That's not how God called us to live. And so we've been learning to live differently, and I hope some of you have been taking steps to be able to incorporate some of those rhythms into your life. And you may remember before that, we were walking through a series talking about doubt, just acknowledging that every one of us deals with doubt in one way or another. And so how can we do that well? Just super practical, hopefully helpful kinds of things. But the series we're kicking off today is very different because this series is called 5 Ways to Wreck Your Life, all right? And so in the coming weeks, we want to help you if your goal is to fly your life into the ground, all right? If you're sort of figuring out the direction or trajectory of your life and you are hoping that in some of the most important areas of life, you will turn your experience into a pile of smoldering rubble, you have come to the right place, all right? Are you excited about that? Okay, that's a little weird actually, but because here's what we're actually going to learn along the way as well. As we talk about some of the ways we can wreck our lives, we're also going to be talking about some of the ways we can navigate these really important areas like decision making and the kinds of things that come out of our mouths and the ways we manage and handle our relationships and other important areas of our life. We're going to be talking about how to do those in a way that actually lead us to a life of love, joy, peace, fulfillment, the life that God has in mind for us, as opposed to the train wreck that, let's be honest, is dangerously easy to have happen in our lives. And of course, we're gonna do it from this book, this wisdom that goes beyond any of the other sources of wisdom out there. In fact, we're gonna be specifically looking at the Old Testament book of Proverbs. Because of all the different books in the Bible, there are 66, as many of you know, of all the books in the Bible, Proverbs speaks as directly and bluntly to some of these critical areas of our lives as just about any other book. In fact, as you'll see, we start to read through this and learn it together, even though these words were written thousands of years ago, they could have been written last week. Because they talk about the human experience and the realities of what every one of us deal with in a way that just makes sense, that we've all experienced in one way or another. See, Proverbs takes the timeless, precious wisdom of God and makes it accessible and understandable to even dumb people like me. And if I can understand this, you can understand it. Because sure, I'm a pastor, but I will admit, there are parts of the Bible, let's just be honest, that can be hard to understand. Proverbs is not one of those parts. Proverbs is as clear, as concise, as sometimes blunt as it can possibly be. Because it's God putting his wisdom on the bottom shelf for every one of us. I mean, just look at a couple examples of some of the things that are found in this book. For instance, Proverbs 20, verse 4. Sluggards, people who just kind of lay around and don't do anything, sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. You don't plow, you don't eat. Any questions? Everybody got that? Or look at this example. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. God hates cheating. He loves honesty. Anything unclear about that? See, as simple as these ideas might seem, though, these kinds of basic principles are the things that pull together and to form the kind of life that God's called and designed us to live. to experience this full life that Jesus talks about when he says, I've come to give you life and give it to the full. Now, up front, I'll admit, Proverbs doesn't give any guarantees. This isn't like some kind of magic formula or spell book that if you do this, you're guaranteed to get this outcome. That's not how it works. It's more a book of principles than it is promises. But it talks about how life works, and it downloads this godly wisdom into the different areas of our lives. It promises if we will follow it, we increase the odds of experience this life that God has in mind. Now, some of you know, in my own personal life, recently, my oldest son, my son's name's Stone, he recently graduated from high school. And so, like many other people, we crowded into Popkini Field over in Bothell with a couple thousand of our favorite friends. And we watched he and his classmates march into the stadium wearing their goofy hats and then listening to overly long speeches that nobody came to hear anyway, right? I mean, they all admit that no one's there for the speeches, but they still give the speech. So anyway, some of you are feeling that way right now, perhaps. I don't know. And as you know, of course, our last name is Wolfgang, so obviously we come at the end of the alphabet. And so it took hundreds of names being called and people walking across the stage until finally it was his big moment. And we yelled and cheered and did all the things that parents do to try to embarrass their kids. It was fantastic. And of course, as part of the celebration of this accomplishment, my wife Lori and I, we got a little graduation gift for him and we bought a little graduation card. And I sat down to start to fill out that card. I wanted to do more than just write like, congrats, love dad, or anything like that. And it was when I started to write that it really hit me. Like, he's about to head out into this world, facing uncertainty left and right, figuring out how to navigate the joys and challenges that come with a human life. And with that in mind, what wisdom can I write on this little $5.99 card to try to help launch him into this next chapter? See, it's that impulse, it's that spirit that is behind the book of Proverbs. In fact, the first few chapters of the book are sort of framed or written in the voice of a loving parent who's wanting to pass along what they have learned about what really matters in life. I heard someone describe it this way: Proverbs is full of short sentences filled with long experience. They're little phrases, little terms, little sometimes very catchy phrases that somehow distill down the experiences, the ups and downs, the challenges of what life really means. And the book is attributed to the great King Solomon. Now, some of you may know a little of the Bible stories around King Solomon. He was one of the greatest kings that Israel ever had. He was the son of a man named David, of David and Goliath fame. He's the third king of Israel, Solomon is. And one day, this is all, of course, found in 1 Kings chapter 3, which I won't read verse by verse, but you can read it later. I'll basically summarize the story for time's sake. But God comes to Solomon in a dream with this incredible offer. He says, your father's been David, someone whose life I showed favor to. I want to do something for you, Solomon. David had just recently died. Solomon had recently been crowned king. God said, Solomon, here's my offer. I will give you any one thing that you want. You ask for it, it'll be yours. So what'll it be? A little side note, I wonder, if God made you that offer, what would you ask for? Ask to win the lottery, maybe? Maybe for good health and long life? Maybe you'd ask for a new quarterback for the Seahawks? I don't know what you'd ask for, right? So God says, Solomon, what do you want? You want fame? It's yours. You want pleasure, power, wealth, possessions? You name it, Solomon, it's yours. And some of you know what Solomon asked for. You know what he asked for? Given this unique chance, can you imagine? The one thing he asked for? Wisdom. Wisdom, God. If you'd give me any one thing in life, I simply ask for this: wisdom. And God was so pleased with that request, so impressed, that God said, not only am I going to give you wisdom, I'll actually throw in all the other stuff as well. This wisdom you'll have from me will open doors and create opportunities and lead you to a life you never dreamed possible. And so Solomon became known as the greatest person, the wisest person who ever lived. The book of Proverbs is a collection of some of what he shared. And there's a few other authors that are mixed in there as well. It's been written down and passed along from generation to generation. And we're going to be digging into some of that wisdom because, friends, it still speaks to us today. Because Proverbs does more than just share some good ideas about how to live. It calls people to a different way of life, a different objective and purpose in life. What Proverbs says is just like Solomon placed wisdom as the highest value and goal of life, you would be wise to do the same. In fact, the best possible goal you can have in life is this. It says it again and again, it's pursue wisdom. Of all the things you can chase, make your life about all sorts of different kinds of things. You have options. But from the writer of Proverbs, his invitation is that stuff doesn't hold a candle to wisdom. So make wisdom your greatest goal. Look at what he says. He says it again and again, but here's an example. Get wisdom. Just do it. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, speaking of wisdom as in terms of a woman. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. Solomon says, of all these things you could choose, you will never regret pursuing wisdom. Get it. I don't care what it costs. Don't let anything stand in your way. And he goes on to say, if you will take this step, if you will put wisdom at the top of your goal list, you will discover what Solomon discovered. It actually will lead and pay off in every other area of life. Look at what he writes in Proverbs chapter 3, starting in verse 13. He says, blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. For she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She's more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. This is what's available by putting wisdom first. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. To those who hold her fast will be blessed. That's the reward that's on the back end of pursuing wisdom. Because according to this wise father, those who arrange their lives around the goal of gaining wisdom will receive rewards that far exceed anything you could imagine, regardless of whether the markets are up or down, regardless of the price of gas or the rate of inflation. Wisdom will never lose its value. You think you want gold? Wisdom's better, Solomon says. You think you want fame, achievement, power? Wisdom's better, Solomon says. Nothing you desire holds a candle to wisdom. But hold on. I'm forgetting what series we're in right now, right? Because we're talking about how to wreck your life, all right? So that would sort of change my advice on this. Here's what I would say instead. When it comes to wisdom, just take a casual approach. When you stumble across it, maybe pay attention, maybe don't. Don't prioritize it, because chances are you know better than anyone who's ever lived before anyway, right? Why bother with the hard work of learning wisdom from others who've been down the same roads you might go down? Just do it on your own. Because, of course, you're smarter than anybody who ever lived before, right? I mean, can we be honest? Isn't that the approach that a lot of people take? Never stop long enough to say, wait a second, why do I have to make these mistakes? Why can't I learn from other people's experience, from other sources of wisdom that are greater than myself? You see, friends, that's the invitation of this series, of this book of Proverbs. And here we should be clear about what wisdom is, because wisdom is not the same as knowledge. We all know that, right? You know tons of people just like I do who know so much. They might even know tons about the Bible. Our society and culture is drowning in knowledge and information. I mean, in our pockets, most of us carry every piece of information the world can offer, right? It's just a few taps away. We have a surplus of information, but can we be honest? Aren't we starving for wisdom in our world? Just starving. You can be a highly educated idiot, can't you? You can have lots of degrees and make no sense at all. Don't believe me? Turn on TV, right? Wisdom isn't about IQ. It isn't about intellect. It isn't about knowledge. Frankly, it's not even about common sense. It's about more than that. I was talking recently about this idea of wisdom with Stan Markowski, who's our pastor of groups here on staff. And we were chatting about a definition that he had heard previously around wisdom. I thought it was kind of a good one to keep in mind. Wisdom is skill in living. It's just skill in living. It's knowing what is true and right and following it with good judgment. It's seeing and responding to life from God's perspective. That's what wisdom is all about. And Solomon says, you aim for that, it's a game changer. Pursue wisdom. And so when I was writing my son's graduation card, it's that word wisdom that kept coming back to my mind. Because of course I want him to succeed in life. I want the same for his two sisters coming behind him. But I want more than that for them. I want them to live a truly fulfilled life. A life that's marked and characterized by wisdom. And when I say a wise life or a fulfilled life, I mean a life that is filled with rich and meaningful relationships, marked by contentment and not driven by this obsession with envy and comparison with the people around them. A life that's not just about them, but also about others, where good decisions are made, maybe even in the area of finances, but not just for their own benefit, but for the generous benefit of other people around them. Lives that are marked with joy and love and peace. And of course, most of all, a life rooted in an authentic relationship with God. Because I've known people who have achieved unbelievable success, but whose lives I would never want. Do you know people like that? And I've known people who may not have much in the eyes of our world, but the way they live, the peace they live with, the joy they ooze, the relationship they have with God, I'd give anything to have what they have. Because when I think about the people I admire most, those lives that have touched my life, people I want to emulate, those are the things they live. Friends, the godly wisdom of Proverbs helps us steer the course in finding that path. I want that for my kids. That's my prayer. I've been praying that for my kids since before they were born. And friends, I'll tell you, I don't just want it for my kids, I want it for you. That's why we're doing this. It's to help each other find this way of wisdom and not wreck our lives in ways we don't have to. Whether you're a young student with most of your years ahead of you, or whether you're later in life with most of your years behind you, it is never too late to pursue wisdom. Because nobody sets out to wreck their lives, but it is so easy to do. That's why Proverbs, you'll see, doesn't just talk about what the way of wisdom looks like, it also talks about the alternative. Again and again, you'll see this contrast that's drawn between these two things, the way of the wise and the path of the fool. The way of the wise and the path of the fool. Because throughout life, we will face crossroads, decision moments, even in big ways or small ways, where we will decide, will we go the wise way or will we take the foolish way? And I know when you see that word fool, it kind of rubs you wrong, right? I mean, nobody likes to be thought of as a fool. Because we think of somebody that's a fool as someone that's like not very bright or has low intelligence. But according to Proverbs, fools may have sky-high IQs. They may have a reputation for success. But what makes them a fool is they ignore God's wisdom. They choose to go their own way or the shifting perspectives of the crowds around them instead of looking to what God might have to say. And so throughout the Proverbs, we see this contrast between the wise person and the fool. Here's a few examples. Proverbs 12:15. The way of the fool seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. You ever known somebody that just wasn't teachable? Their hearts just weren't open? Don't point at them right now, please. Their hearts just weren't open. They knew better than everybody else. Can I admit sometimes I'm that guy? Or look at this. The wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but a fool is hot-headed yet feels secure. See, a wise person realizes in these choice moments, it matters what I do. There is good and bad in this world, and I need to make wise choices to go down God's direction instead of my own. But a fool says, what's the difference? There's no consequences. I'll do whatever I want. Or this one, Proverbs 29. Oh, this makes me uncomfortable. A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. Oh. How many times have I played the fool? Where I just said something I wish I could put back in my mouth, where I did something I so regret. Anybody else in the room know anything about this fool deal? Am I the only one? Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe some of the online folks understand. You know what I'm talking about, right? Because every one of us knows what it's like from time to time to slip down that foolish path. The writer of Proverbs says, you don't have to do that way. You don't have to play the fool. You don't have to go that direction. Because left to ourselves, we can do a pretty good job making a train wreck of our lives. His invitation, don't go that way. Why would you ever want to damage more relationships or squander more time or energy? Why shed any more unnecessary tears or accumulate any more regrets in your life? What if you were to just humbly admit that you don't know everything? What if you were to simply say, God, I need your wisdom in my life. I need a wisdom greater than myself, which is ultimately what Solomon says is the essence of what true wisdom is. Look at this from Proverbs 9. He says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. What's he mean? He means the key to wisdom is acknowledging the two great realizations of life. You've heard me say it before. The two great realizations of life. One, there is a God, and two, you're not him, right? The path to wisdom starts at that trailhead. There is a God, and you ain't him. The minute we come to that place of humbling ourselves and opening ourselves up, Solomon says, that's when the journey toward wisdom begins. And it says the fear of the Lord. It's not some sort of trembling, scared, like he's gonna zap me kind of deal. This is talking about a reverence, a respect, an acknowledgement that, as I said, there is a God and I'm not him. That's our first step toward being wise. Skilled living is built on this foundation, friends. So here's my challenge for you as I wrap up. The basics of enrolling in the school of wisdom, which I want to invite you to do. Enroll in the school of wisdom. 3 things. You ready? Ask for it, look for it, and act on it. Simple stuff, easy to remember. First, ask for it. I don't know how much of a prayer you are, but chances are there are needs you have and things you bring to God and ask him for. It's a wonderful thing. He invites us to do that. But just think about it. In your life, when's the last time you just asked God for wisdom? What if, like Solomon, you were to make that the prayer of your heart? Maybe a daily, multi-time a day thing where you just say, Lord, I need your wisdom. Not just in the face of some big decision or some big obstacle I'm encountering. I just, in my life, overall, in every arena, I want your, please, Lord, give me wisdom. One of my very favorite verses in all the Bible is this one, in James chapter 1, verse 5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. And what happens? It will be given to you. I love this verse for 2 main reasons. Because a lot of times I lack wisdom, And a lot of times I got serious faults, right? But here's the beauty of this promise. It doesn't depend on how much wisdom I have or how many faults I struggle with. It's God's faithfulness and grace who says, come to me, even in your faults, even in your confusion, and just ask. Lord, give me your wisdom. What if we were to imitate what Solomon did like that? That given the chance to ask him for anything, we would simply pray, Lord, give me wisdom. You could do that every day. Ask for it. Second, look for it. Don't just expect it to come magically into your life, and don't just look where everybody else seems to be looking. I mean, the self-help section on Amazon or the YouTube influencer you like to follow. What if you were to start to look for wisdom from God in a place like Proverbs, to actually dig in and see what it has to say, just at least try it? There's a habit that I was introduced to very early in my walk with Jesus, and it's a habit I've encouraged other people that are kind of new to reading the Bible to experiment with. It's reading one chapter of Proverbs every day. I know people who've done this for years and years and years. Here's a beautiful thing about Proverbs. There are 31 chapters to the book, which just happens to coincide with the number of days in most of our months, right? 31 days. And so a habit, just a rhythm to get into, is whatever the day is on the calendar, read that chapter of Proverbs. For example, I've been doing this as I've been kind of re-preparing for this series and reminding myself of the beautiful wisdom that's in there. Today, January 26th, read Proverbs 26. And again, you'll find just unbelievably practical wisdom about things like steering clear of gossip, being honest in your communication with others, dealing with conflict in your life. Anybody have some conflict in your life? No? Okay, good. You're good then. Just skip this chapter. But for those who occasionally run into issues, there's so much there. Incredibly practical stuff. And let me say, if you don't have a Bible, I'd love to either find a way to get you one or come down afterwards. I'll help you download my favorite Bible app. It's the one most of our staff uses in their own personal reading. Amazing little Bible app, and show you how to start reading it. And then, of course, be with us through this series. Because, friends, we're not just going to be expounding our best ideas. What we're trying our best to do is bring the beautiful truths and wisdom of this book, written so long ago, but still speaking so clearly into you and I's lives today. Whatever phase of life you're in, whatever challenges you might be facing. So ask for it. Just ask for it. Doesn't hurt. Look for it in good places. And finally, act on it. Do something about the stuff you're reading or that you're learning. Again, knowledge is not the same as wisdom. This is not a goal to shove as much spiritual information in our minds as we possibly can. It's about learning a way of life, the way of wisdom that Solomon so clearly outlines. It's another challenging verse from James 1, verse 22. It says, don't merely listen to the word and deceive yourselves. Do what it says. In fact, Jesus uses that parable of a wise and foolish builder. And the difference between the wise and foolish builder is not one hears Jesus' teaching and the other doesn't. Wise and foolish builder, they both hear the teaching of Jesus. He says the foolish person builds their house on sand. The wise person builds their house on the rock by whether they do what he actually says. Not just hear it, not just know it, but actually do it. That's the difference between the wise and foolish builder in that famous parable. It's putting wisdom into practice when it comes to my relationships or the way I make decisions or whatever it is. So that's my question as we begin this series. What do you say? Are you up for enrolling in this adventure? Do you want to begin the process of acquiring something that is worth so much more than gold? It all starts by embracing this beautiful, simple truth, the knowledge that there is a God who is powerful and personal and madly in love with you. And a God who's in Jesus reached out his hand of forgiveness and grace to all of us fools and said, come with me, receive my grace. Let me teach you my way. You don't have to wreck your life. I can help. That's where it all starts. And maybe you're here or you're watching online, and maybe you haven't ever admitted just the simple truth that you know something about that path of the fool. Maybe you're thinking you wish you'd heard some of this earlier in your life. Oh, the number of things I'd save myself from if I just learned some of this early. Or maybe you're early on and you want to set a course that serve you well through your life. Friends, if you know something about this path of the fool, let me just say 3 things. First, you're not the only one. Every one of us knows what that's about. Second, there is no mistake so great that God can't forgive it. Today can be a new beginning for you. And third, it's never too late to begin that journey toward wisdom. You can simply admit whatever foolishness has happened, your past is not your future. And you can begin to learn the new way, the way that God's made possible through Jesus. You ask for it, you look for it, and you act on it. That can start today. So what do you say? Will you enroll in this school with me? Will you say, God, I've tried it my way, hasn't always worked out. I'm ready to try yours. To take your hand and allow you to show me what it means to truly live a life of wisdom. I want that for you. Let's ask him for that together. Would you pray with me? Oh God, you tell us we can come to you for anything. And many of us have different needs and struggles in our lives, that's for sure. Those are worth bringing to. But God, what a lesson and example Solomon gives to come to you and to simply ask for your wisdom in our lives. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God for it, who gives without finding fault. Just maybe ask him for it right now. And resolve to look for it. Maybe it's with a simple habit like reading a chapter of Proverbs each day. You can do that just to begin to soak in some of this wisdom from God. And then, of course, to act on it, to do something about what you're learning, to let it seep into how you handle your relationships and the things that come out of your mouth and the decisions that you make and how you manage the things you have. Let that wisdom seep in and chart a new course of wisdom in your life. God, I thank you. I thank you because even a fool like me, you're willing to extend your grace and give us a fresh start and a new beginning. And maybe there are those that are in this room or watching online, they want to take that step. They want to switch from this path of their own ideas to yours. They want to embrace that beautiful grace that you offer to all of us. And if that's you, I'd love to talk to you after the service here in the room. I'll be over to my right, your left. I'd love to talk to you over there under the balcony. And those of you online, you can just simply type in the chat or let our host know that you'd like to talk with or pray with someone about what that might mean in your life. Maybe want to mark that fresh beginning with a baptism celebration that's coming up in a few weeks. God, I just thank you. I thank you for loving us enough to not leave us on our own in this life. For sharing your wisdom with us, just like a loving father would do with a child. Showing us your way. Open our hearts to that, I pray, oh God. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Hey, thanks so much for watching.
Please be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
Yep, and click right here for more content we think you might like.
Seriously.
Click it.
Do it right now. Show them again, Kiki.